Okay, we're going to do a teardown of the first generation iPod Touch. But before we start, I just wanted to do a little bit of a comparing of the iPod Touch, which came out in September of 2007, with the more recent devices. What I have over here is a Samsung Galaxy S4 Active, and I have, which is the previous generation of the Samsung Galaxy, which came out last year in 2013. And I have over here the iPod Touch 5th generation. You'll notice the screen's a little cracked, but besides that, it's a perfectly good iPod Touch. And that's the latest generation. So you'll see, if you look at the screens, that the brightness of the iPod Touch screen is definitely lower, and I have the maximum brightness on all of them, than the other devices. The iPod Touch screen had a 3.5-inch screen. Obviously, it's not as bright, but smaller than the other devices. The iPod Touch, just to compare and to move over, so the latest iPod Touch has the 4-inch Retina display, whereas the iPod Touch from the first generation had a 3.5-inch display. The resolution on the iPod Touch was 320 by 480. The resolution on the latest iPod is a 1136 by 640 resolution, and it's a Retina display, meaning that it's 326 pixels per inch. The original iPod Touch was not a Retina display. The original iPod Touch was 64 pixels per inch. So obviously there's a very big difference in the resolution and the pixels per inch in the two devices. The newer iPhones and iPods have the 326 pixels per inch that the what's called the Retina display, and our eye can only see 300 pixels per inch. The Samsung actually has even more on its specs. It has 443 pixels per inch, and it's a different type of display. It's an OM LED display, the light emitting diode technology, as opposed to the liquid crystal technology of the iPods and the iPhones even till today. And you'll notice it's a little dimmer. It seems to have the same exact specs as the original iPhone, which I don't have to show you. However, according to all the reviewers, despite the fact that it had the same resolution, 328 by 480, and it had the same pixels per inch, the display on the original iPod Touch was noticeably dimmer, they say, than the display on the original iPhone. Now we're going to take a moment and we're going to start doing a teardown. I can't tear down the newer devices because we're still using them, but we're going to tear down the iPod Touch first generation, so by the end of this I won't be able to turn it on anymore. You're not going to see these nifty features. I don't think I can get it back, but let's try this anyways and see what happens. Okay, and now we're going to try to do a teardown of the iPod Touch first generation to take a look inside. I have a special tool to do this, and the tool is called a splurger. And you can purchase this tool for, I don't know, maybe $3 on Amazon. And it's what everyone said you have to use, because obviously they don't make it that easy to do this, to do a teardown at all. They don't want you to take it apart. There's no noticeable anything. There's no even screws on the outside. The first thing you're going to see, now I'm going to show you, is just to show you what it would have looked like. It was... that was it, right? And one of the things, it didn't have any camera. It's still actually on. Even though I opened it up, it hasn't gotten turned off yet. Although one thing, while I was opening it, that I noticed immediately was that the antenna, and this is the spot over here, where you have the antenna, and you have a mark off here for that. This is the actual antenna item, and it tore off while I was opening it. That was the one thing, when Steve Jobs announced the iPod Touch, one of the distinguishing characteristics was that it had Wi-Fi capability, which there was really only one other touchscreen device, the Arcos, at the time, which had a touchscreen capability together with a web browser, together with Wi-Fi. So he really talked about the web browser a lot, and the fact that you could navigate to web pages. So right now, we still have the web browser, but you're going to see, since the antenna has been torn off, you can no longer get anywhere. And now you see the back, and most of this is taken up by the battery, and we're going to have to take off the battery in order to try to figure out what's behind it. In the iPhone, so you would have I think more taken by the circuit board because you have a lot more stuff to deal with as far as the Bluetooth and the phone capabilities. So we're going to try to take off the battery. I might break the battery while I'm doing this. I've never opened up a device before. You'll notice that as we pointed out in the class a lot of times, the battery takes up the overwhelming majority of the inside of the device. That really hasn't changed that much in the years since. The battery technology really has not caught up with the phone. So here's our battery. I'm not going to open it. And here's how it's connected. But you'll see that basically the battery is, I'd say, probably at least 70 to 80% of the inside of the device. And the processor, the entire processor for the device, is all right over here. And we're going to have to try to tear it up to open it. And see what components are involved in this processor. So that's just one thing to notice right off the bat, and that really hasn't changed. If anything, it's gotten more so. That as Moore's law has made the processors smaller and smaller and more powerful, so the batteries have not kept up at all, and the back of the devices really is almost entirely battery at this point. And what we really need, I believe, is innovation as far as batteries. Because battery life and battery size are probably the two biggest things holding back the nanotechnology, the micro, electronics right now. So we're going to try to open this up. It might take me a little bit. So I think I'm going to pause the video now just for another moment. Okay, we're now looking at the top of the PCB, the printed circuit board or the logic board. I'm going to point out a bunch of items here. The first and most important is the Apple branded item, which you'll see clearly has 8900B, and that is the central processing unit, the CPU. In reality, it is manufactured by Samsung. 412 megahertz, a single core ARM11 CPU. 90 nanometer. It was common in microelectronics and mobile devices in 2007. Underneath that, you'll notice something else that's interesting right over here. And the markings on that, you might notice 302D, and that's the accelerometer, the motion sensor. So you look here, and it's manufactured by ST Microelectronics. So obviously, both of these items you'd find also in an iPhone. You could, move it around, and it would move accordingly. Then you have the flash memory. And in this case, they are Samsung 749 with the marking K9HCG08U5M. There are two of those, and considering this is the 16 gigabytes, so those are each 8 gigabytes of flash memory. What's interesting is that some of them actually had Toshiba chips for their flash memory. This one has Samsung chips. It's really, I guess, dependent on which type of iPod Touch you had. And then finally, the one more item that you can kind of make out here very clearly is right over here, and that's the symbol for Wolfson, and it's actually the audio codec WM8758BG, and that's obviously what handled the audio component. So here you have it. This is an entire board. This is the top of the board, and then that's the back of that over there. Of the printed circuit board. And now, if you go to the bottom, which is a lot smaller, and there are a lot less stuff that I can point out to you, but just to go through a little bit of what's on the bottom as well. And let me make this now so that you can actually see it, and it will hopefully get into focus a little bit. There it is. And so you'll see a couple of, just a couple of things I can point out to you. Some of these I could not identify. But two items to point out are on your left, Apple integrated circuit board 338S0461, and that it takes care of power management on the device. And all the way on the right side is another circuit board. You'll notice very clearly the LT symbol. That's for linear technology, and that's 4066, and that regulates the USB power management. So most of the items on the bottom really regulate the power management. Okay, so now we're back again, and you can see the iPod, but really, in reality, I've taken it apart. So this is the front, which is the protective Gorilla Glass, and here we have nothing in here, no more battery. And now taking apart the display, the first thing you see is the mirror to bounce off the light, then the thin film, and then over here you'll notice a lot of little items here to actually create the lights for the diode. And then as we go in, I'm going to open this now using my splurger, and it's going to break a lot of stuff here. Okay, there's another layer. And here's another layer, and here's the liquid crystal layer, I believe. And then after that, you'll get to the RGB, and then you'll get to the touch screen. So this is the touch-sensitive screen, and here's a couple of layers. Here is where you'd actually have the light bouncing off and going through. You see a bunch of polarizers in the process. So basically you have here your display, and you could go even a little bit further. I think there's another layer here because this is a polarizer, and then you have the touchscreen layer. I can't go further, but that's basically showing you, from a layman's terms, the display. So basically we're done, and I'll just bring all the pieces together. So here you have it. These are all the different parts of the iPod Touch. You have all the different layers of the displays over here, going from the back layer, the very back of the display, which has a mirror on the back, and then going through the various polarizers and the liquid crystal and the RGB coloring, finally to the touchscreen on the top. Here's the battery, which, as we pointed out, makes up about 80% of the unit. Here are the two little circuit boards. The top circuit board, which takes care of the CPU, the flash memory, the audio codec, the bottom, which is primarily used for power management processes. Here is the back, just so you could see, and this is where they had the low antenna, and that was where the Wi-Fi was. And over here you have the headphone jack and the connection to the pin connector, and that's basically it. What's interesting is that the technology really has not changed that much. I mean, the processor obviously is better, maybe it down. I know they switched to 45 nanometer technology with the second generation. They're probably up to maybe even better than that now. I know that the screen has gotten bigger, but fundamentally all the different pieces that we had then, namely the processor and the flash memory and the accelerometer and the touch screen, are basically all fundamentally the same. They've added a camera, which they got from the iPhone. They've added two cameras, in fact, one in the rear and one in the front. They tried to make it a little thinner, but they've been stuck by the battery technology, which really limits what you can do.